And 3, 2,
2.5.
Hello and welcome to
2 3/4
and beer. Today's beer of the day is by Rogue Brewing Company. It is a hazelnut brown nectar. It is a brown ale with hazelnut flavor. It is blah 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 blah. It is 5.6% in alcohol by volume. Has a IBU of 33.
Now, by you skip it to the end and saying blah blah, we just lost half our followers.
Says you.
No, they skipped to the end too.
Today, before we get into this beer review, today we have a big episode. A long episode. This episode, I think, is almost 2 hours long, if not more.
Can you handle it?
Because we have an interview with a Star Wars impersonator. What would you call him that? Or event coordinator?
Yeah. Did you just call him a Star Wars impersonator? It's like insulting. He's not impersonating anyone, man. Calm down.
He is himself.
Novastar. No. He's acting. It's not He's not impersonating the officer.
It's
calm your
Novastar.
shit.
He seems like a cool guy.
Yeah, dude, like he's great, man. Everything he does is amazing. He's got future projects coming up in the work. Look him up. His name is Matthew
Novastar.
No, fuck it. Pronounce his last name. Fuck it. Fuck the Novastar. Everyone knows Novastar. Say, what was his last name?
We don't know his last name yet. Dare, Risk, Dream. We're gonna go ahead and try this hazelnut brown nectar ale by Rogue Brewing Company.
Brown nectar ale.
Now, when they say hazelnut, they're talking actual hazelnut, not no sweet creamer type of hazelnut. This is a different.
This is brewed with hazelnut.
This is a different animal than other.
Tastes roasty.
I know, right? Tastes like a campfire.
Yeah.
Chestnuts, but this is hazelnuts. I guess I'm wrong.
Now,
how would you describe this beer, Keenan?
Well, I'm not great on statistics like you are, but it's very mildly bitter. It's not overly
bitter.
I'm saying it's very not bitter.
Okay, yeah. I'm not
mildly bitter. Or there's a bitterness. If not, then you're not drinking a good beer. All right, you're drinking goddamn Budweiser. There's a bitterness, but it's so very mild. And you taste the hazelnut, and
I like the carbonation on this one. A lot of beers recently haven't had that great carbonation. The carbonation has been good.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that. Maybe I wouldn't acknowledge that had you not.
Some beers just had that real flat taste to them.
Yeah, like they're too afraid of being a soda.
And this one has just has the perfect blend of carbonation,
like static TB on your tongue.
And Keenan's mentioned this before. He doesn't really enjoy sweet beers, so the fact that this is more of the nut side of the hazelnut instead of the sweetness that it would be a hazelnut creamer or something like that.
It's giving flavor to your beer while you're still feeling like you're drinking a beer flavored beer.
Beer flavored beer. Insane in the membrane.
Yeah, well, we got some interesting hosts. We got some hosts with lots to say, and that's what we're about here. We're letting them say it all. We're not cutting them off. We're not selling them short. We're not saying, hey, your time of talking has come to an end, and now we have to go. We just literally let them go, and when they're done talking, that's the end of our episode.
Exactly. We like to give our guests the respect they deserve, and that's all the time that they need to deliver their story, whatever story it may be. And I'm gonna give this beer. Shoot, we're just throwing nines out there. I think I'm gonna give it an 8, 9. 8.
I was thinking 8 also.
8.
Yeah, because it's almost too mellow. It doesn't attack your taste buds, We've had so many beers on this channel, and on this podcast, on this show, that this beer is so mellow that I cannot give it the same rating I would give other beers. I cannot. It would contradict the ratings I've given those
So
other
maybe
beers.
a 7 even.
Yeah, it's just so drinkable that it might fall under boring for people that know true craft beer.
Hello, Matthew.
Hello. Aha, I think we're getting it working, I hope.
Oh, heck yeah. Can you hear us well?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Yes,
cool.
I can.
Very nice.
That is cool. That is
Yay.
exciting.
So, let's see. Let's make sure that you're.
So the fun part will be which one is Adam and which one is, who's the other one?
Oh, it's a Keenan.
Yeah, it's Keenan.
Keenan. Now you'll be like, okay, the pro tip of the day is can you figure out whose voice is whose?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're gonna change them up too. Yeah.
Man, I don't. This is what you get, man. I don't have any other voices.
This is what you get, man. I don't have any other voices.
That is not what I
no.
sound like.
You don't
We
even
have
know
an
now.
impersonator. Yeah. I do a lot of different voices. My girlfriend says I do a good Christopher Walken, so I'll have to do that at one point.
Oh yeah, yeah, man. I think Christopher Walken impressions are my favorite impressions.
Oh, good.
Oh, good. Oh, I see what you did there. Oh, that was spot on.
Thanks. It's good to be here. Guys, listen. What are we talking about?
Oh,
That is pretty good.
That is spot on. Yeah, that is
pretty
good.
Oh shit, you guys seem like a riot. No, I don't know. The best one is, I'm sure you guys have heard Kevin Pollak's impression of him. No? Or...
I don't believe I have heard of Kevin Pollak.
Oh my god. Well, Kevin Pollak, maybe it's... I'm dating myself at this point. I'm kind of older or whatever. Kevin Pollak was a good comedian, back in the 90s and whatnot, but he does great impressions, but especially his Christopher Walken one, and it became really famous. And I know he went on Saturday Night Live, and then he read a lot of it's the funniest thing. He read he's like, I'm Christopher Walken, and now I'll read you some children's stories. And then he's like, 3 little kittens lost the mittens. You're like, what? Are you out of your damn mind? It was so funny, though. It's the funniest thing. And then he's like, okay, now I think I'm going to read a little bit from my favorite Chinese menus from my favorite restaurants. And you're like, holy shit. So he's like, Mugu Gai Pan. And you're like, Jesus, it's the funniest thing. Just hearing him say, Chinese dishes like, what else? Kung Pao chicken. Damn. Hot stuff, and you're like, what? It's so funny.
So that's a really good impression. Do you do a lot of impressions? You said.
I don't know if it's a really good impression, but I appreciate it. Maybe it sounds better over the microphone. That might
it
be.
sounds
In person,
just
it's
like you, man.
But let's see. Sometimes I'll do other weird ones. Well, I'm actually. There's so many different things we could talk about, but I'm working on a screenplay right now, and it's intended to be animated. And so I do a lot of vocal work, and I have done so in the past. So a lot of times I've recorded different vocals for different characters for projects that I've done in the past. So it's I'm applying it for to the screenplay. But yeah, sometimes I'll do Arnold. It'll be like, what is it? Who told you that you could eat my cookie? Put the cookie down now. So it's do those things or whatever. So Arnold is one. I'm sure I do other ones too. Sometimes I do a mean Harrison Ford, but I think I have to lean into the mic and just grumble mostly, right?
You just grumble. Have you ever thought about dabbling in the stand-up comedy world?
Oh my God! Well, it's funny you mentioned the stand-up comedy. So when I was in college, for some reason I was obviously younger then, but I was into acting then. I'm actually trying to get back into acting now, so that's another thing we can talk about if you want. But so when I was in college and I was studying theater and acting, all this other stuff, it was a different time too. The internet really was really brand new. I know it sounds retarded, I'm sitting here saying, oh my gosh, it's the internet was brand new when I was a kid. But it really was.
I remember back then.
It was the '90s. It really was. So I was there, and a comedy contest came up at the college, and my friends were like, "Oh, this is cool." And people were talking about it in the green rooms and stuff. We're doing these theater projects, and they're like, "Matthew, you should enter it." I'm like, "What? No." I'm like, I don't think so." And they're like, "I'll do it if you do it." I'm like, "All right, fine." So then, it was fun, like literally having to kind of just do a little bit of research and be like, "Shit, what does it take to do a comedy routine?" Like, everybody takes it sort of for granted. You just go and see these shows, and these people are wonderful and they're funny, and you laugh and you think, well, that's how hard could it be, is what I think a lot of people think about it.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
You don't realize is, if you want to make people laugh, it's one thing to say a joke and then get the hell out, but if you're on stage in front of an audience of 100 or more people, you have to be funny for an hour straight.
Yeah.
And like, it's very easy to fuck up.
Oh yeah, I forced Keenan once to go up to do open mic.
Yeah, and like it could have went worse. Like as nervous as I was, and I got so nervous, man. I pounded down like as many beers as I could until it was my turn to go on. And I'm like, surely this is a great idea. This is exactly how I'm gonna be funny, because I am a riot when I'm drunk. Give me another beer.
Oh, Lord.
So I get on stage,
how did that
and like,
work out for you?
Like you were talking about, you got to have more than one joke, and like literally all I kind of had was one joke. Now it was a story, so I told that one joke for a brief moment. Like I told this story, and I got like a half-assed laugh from the crowd, and I was like, anyways, that's it, bye.
And then that was it, right? You were like, uh-oh.
Yeah, and I was like, man, I did not have anything after that, Like
Well,
I had the whole story dragged out to where, like, they only gave you, like, 10 or 15, 30 minutes, something like that, and I had the story dragged out in my head to where it would take that long, but I got nervous and just sped through it, and I was like, all right, anyways, that's my joke, bye.
Right? I mean, and that's the thing, is I can at least tell you from the experience that I have as an actor and whatnot, is that it takes as much preparation as any other performance, like a play or a film or whatever. Is you have to, like, people maybe didn't think this about Robin Williams, by the way. Oh my God, I miss him so much. But when he would prepare these things, and he'd have to go through it, and you have to memorize it, and then there's also like sort of offshoots. You have to kind of feel out the audience, and if you're like, if this isn't working and I'm going down this line of thinking with the joke, and you feel it, you change. You like, I can't explain it. It's like, you don't make a exact roadmap most of the time if you're going to try to be funny. You really have to, like, just be in the moment and go off of the joke and enjoy it, and play off the audience to some extent. At least that's what the professionals tend to do. At least everything that I had learned when I would, read about what they had to say. Like, you can, find books on comedy in the past. And now, of course, with YouTube, which has now been around since, 2006. I remember joining it when it first appeared, if you can believe it. 2005 and 6, I'm going to say. But anyway, like, you can go and see videos on this stuff and learn more about what does it take. But, you guys ever, like, you guys are running this little podcast thing. You guys are familiar with Joe Rogan?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You guys like the JRE?
Yes.
It's so good, right? Like, I love watching his podcast. It's so good. Like, he's always got these most interesting guests on, and Joe, being a comedian himself, he understands, like, what does it take. And, again, by the way, you shouldn't feel bad. Like, every comedian bombs, every single one. Robin had stories about where he's like, oh yeah, I remember when I was young and I went to this club, and I was great doing it somewhere else, but then you do it in this club and just everybody was like, boo, you suck, get the fuck out. And it's like, what?
Oh yeah, like, everyone has a different taste.
Can you imagine being that too? Like, can you imagine if you were that guy, like, one day later, like 20 years later, you're like, yeah, I remember I went to a comedy club and we all booed Robin Williams. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. Like the record label did diss the Beatles and shit.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You're like, I turned down J.K. Rowling for Harry Potter, and I feel like an idiot now.
Oh,
so
yeah. There's a whole bunch of those out there. I mean, you know what that reminds me of? This is completely off topic, but that reminds me of that dude who played Rhodey in the first Iron Man, and the dude from Hustle and Flow and shit. And then like they weren't offering him enough money and actor drama, blah blah blah. So he dropped out, and the other dude jumped in.
Yeah,
now that has skyrocketed his career. Now he's in the fucking Avengers, and I forget the dude's name that was in Hustle and Flow, but he's just like, He's probably thinking,
The
man,
newer
I should
one
have
is
stuck.
Don Cheadle, and then I forget who the other guy is, but he's also a very talented actor and whatnot. And I'm not. You just never know. You never know why or why not those things are going to happen. You know.
Yeah,
The way-
like I bet you anything that dude's kicking this. Like, man, I should have stayed War Machine. You know, I bet you he's thinking that. And I don't know,
Right.
stuff like that makes me think about like that guy specifically.
Now,
He
you
always
said you
comes to
did.
mind.
You said you did some voice acting in the past. Could you tell us some of the about that?
Well, most of the vocal work that I've done has been primarily for my own projects. I did a few small things for other people's projects, none of them professional or anything like that. But I certainly have a range with it, and most of it has to do with just doing general vocals for different kind of character types or whatnot. For example, most of where I kind of put my vocals out there, I guess is the best way of saying it, is when I did my first live Star Wars performances in 2005 and 6, is when I don't know what the hell's wrong with me, I'm a crazy artist. I decided, hey, I've never seen a live lightsaber performance, I wonder what it would take to put that together. And so I started working on all that, and then what I did is make a sound plot for the show so that we wouldn't have to do all of this stuff live and with mics, because I just thought that would be not only difficult, but while you're jumping around and doing all this athletics, trying to say lines in dramatic form won't always work. Like, you're too tired, you're exhausted, you can't speak a line the way that it feels like in the movies, It's hard to explain, but I think you know what I'm trying to say, right? Like, while you're doing backflips and everything, if you have to then say a line,
and then
you're
that
going to
line
sound
comes out while you're
exasperated.
taking deep breaths, then it's not going to be.
No, it's
Oscar
called
material.
it's called not skipping cardio at the gym.
Exactly.
Well,
But
this
I
is
think
in
you
a
know what I mean.
world where people do skip cardio at the gym, Adam. So
Well, to
we
do
have
backflips
to-
and all
we
that
have
stuff,
to
you better not
adapt
skip cardio. But
to
that's
not-
the thing, is in these performances, I was doing some acrobatics and stuff. Like, I backflipped in one of them. Other ones I did butterfly twist, this kind of thing. These not Jackie Chan style things, but sort of. Some of it's called tricking, where you're doing these moves like giant jumping kicks or flips and twists. But anyway, beyond that, the point was, some of the actors who I would cast, it's not like they were vocal actors, so I'd want proper vocals for them within the show, which wasn't their real voice. In fact, it was funny, in one iteration of the show that I did, the one that I did in 2007, which was Balance of Power 2, the first one we did in 2005 and 6, Balance of Power 1, then we did Balance of Power 2, this one guy voiced himself as an Imperial, this one guy was in the show and as a stormtrooper, but he voiced our other guy, Imperial officer, and then I can't even explain it. This other guy who was the Imperial officer voiced something else, something really minor. So it's just all over the map. Where it was just
everyone doing what
so,
they can. And
yeah, and then my main bad guy, who the character name was Necrolysis. So he's this evil.
No.
He was supposed to be like a Darth Vader type, but he was this wonderful a friend of mine. He's bald, black guy. He was really awesome, very talented, very athletic, and we synced together really well. So I was like the light master, and he was the dark master. So we're fighting and everything. But his voice, like, I remember when I was talking to him, I'm like, "So Anthony, what do you think? Do you think you'd ever record your vocals?" And he's like, "Oh God, you know my voice, Matthew. I don't sound evil. I don't. I sound too normal." I'm like, "Really? You don't think you could try?" He's like, "You wouldn't want to hear me try." I'm like, "Really? Oh, come on." And then one day we did, and I was like, "Okay, you're right. You can't sound
You're not
evil.
evil.
And he's like, "I told you. You weren't listening to me." But it's a really good example of, like, when when you see films and you see these actors in these films, you have to understand that, like, they have to cast these people in two ways. They have to say, does the voice sound like what we need for this character? And does their look work? And if you're lucky, then you can do something like an animated project, or in this case, voiceover, where it was a live performance where we had all the sound in the can.
yeah,
Basically.
I've
where
seen
the
so
sound-
many scenarios where they did not match up both of those, and
Like what?
like I can't even remember
Is it
to
crazy?
name
You know what,
anything.
that reminds
but
me,
I know
though,
exactly what you're talking
that
about.
reminds me of the fact that Darth Maul isn't voiced by the actor.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is one. Speaking of, like, you were talking about that and Star Wars,
Right
and
on
that
my mind
freaking
when you
happened
said
in
it,
Star
because
Wars.
that's a great example. Ray Park is a fantastic martial artist. Shout out to Ray Park. I don't think he'd be necessarily listening, but if he ever is, he's fantastic. He was a wushu champion.
Ray Park
of
could totally
the
be
80s.
listening to our podcast. That's believable.
Yeah.
He's probably
Yeah,
listening
well,
right now. You know.
Well, if you guys can get Michael J. White on here, I mean, that's amazing.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
we're working on Ray Park.
we
actually.
have that notch on our bedpost.
We're working on him.
Yeah. No.
Hey, I gotta say, following up Michael J. White, I mean, big shout out to that guy. That guy is the truth. I love watching his videos when he talks about martial arts, and I love when he talks about the execution of a punch. And my favorite was, which I think I messaged just privately to Adam, but we might as well say it here on the show or whatever. But he is one of the greatest videos that really explains how to make a proper jab or punch in this sort of it was sort of a video that was taken surreptitiously by someone clearly in the group of when he's teaching Kimbo Slice, Rip to Kimbo, Miss Kimbo.
Yeah.
But it was so great because he says all the exact things that I mean, most people are not going to think about it, but if you're a martial artist, like every moment I'm listening to him saying all that, I'm like, yep, exactly, thank you very much, exactly. And he's talking about also the difference between if you're a street fighter and you think you're tough and you're awesome and you're great, that's fine. Like, okay, you're big, you're tough, whatever. But he's like, then there's technique. And I can tell you with some serious, vehement passion that technique always will trump raw, just power or talent or whatever.
Yes.
It's why they call it the sweet science with boxing, is that, you throw the punch properly, it's going to beat out any quote-unquote haymaker punch or the kind of punch that you just throw by being in the street naturally. And it's the funniest thing because in this great drill that he did, he's like, okay, Kimbo, put out your hand. And the funny thing is my background is as a fencer. So I used to teach saber fencing for many years. And people might think, what the hell does that have to do with boxing or martial arts? It's exactly the same what he said. He says, put up your hand, Kimbo. Now, I'm going to punch your hand. Just don't let me touch it. Just don't let me touch it. So he says, the first way is the slow. And then he throws the punch, and he kind of telegraphs it. Regular audience is not going to tell, but it's true. Kimbo was able to move his hand away. And he's like, okay, I'll throw it a couple more times that same way. So he's all, that's the crappy way. He's like, basically, I'm telegraphing a lot. But now I'm going to throw it again. You're not going to tell the difference, but anyways, don't let me touch it. And sure enough, he's just like, pow. And he's like, whoa, what the hell? Kimbo, you could see his eyes. He was like, what the hell is this magic?
Yeah.
And the irony is there was nothing magical about what Michael J. White was doing at that particular moment. I mean, he's a talented guy, he's a strong guy, he's a tough guy, he's flexible. But what he did there was something that you can learn, Adam, that you can learn, Keenan?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, someone remember my name for the first.
100. Well, you got to listen, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
100%, you guys could all do this technique. I mean, now whether or not people can become a good boxer or fencer is another matter. But the point is, teaching people the proper technique. If you do it, that's it. It's just the technique. There's no magic in that moment of the thing when you do it right. So it was just so funny. And then he was like, I'm going to throw it again, Kimbo, and just don't let me touch your hand. And he threw it actually even medium speed. The speed did not matter. It was the fact that his execution was proper, that Kimbo couldn't see it coming. And that's exactly what is going on with a proper punch. It's simple. Put it this way. If I throw a ball at you, Adam, and you see it coming, are you going to catch it?
Maybe.
Yes,
Reflex.
most likely.
Reflex.
I throw this ball. I say, yo, Adam, I'm throwing you the baseball. You're like, yo, Matthew, throw it. You see it coming. It's coming to you. You got time. You're thinking, boom, you catch it. But if you had your eyes closed, how would you be able to catch the ball?
The Force.
Yeah. You pray, you hope for luck, but you're not going to catch it. So that's what they also
I'm not
talk about.
force sensitive, so that wouldn't work. I'm just saying that's what I try.
That you do not see coming. And that's what a fencer does, is basically if I hit you, it's probably a moment that you were just not ready for it because you couldn't see it coming, and that's why you get hit. If you could see it coming, you'd stop it. That's kind of the thing, right? Like, if I was going to punch you in the face, here's the thing. You don't want to get punched in the face.
Right,
So
exactly.
people go, well, right, and then people have to think about it. Why do I get punched in the face?
You don't
get
have a
punched in the face
say-so
because
in whether or
can't
not you
stop
get punched in
someone
the
from
face.
punching you in the face.
Yeah, he was. Michael Jai was really cool. He actually has a bunch
awesome.
of videos right now. He's been uploading a lot of videos on YouTube. I think
Yeah.
it's like a weekly thing where he shows a new technique off. And,
I'm telling you, I mean, I know you guys just had him on the show, and you might be like, "How does this guy know him from anybody else?" And I'm like, "I watch his channel." So
watch his channel.
it's awesome. Like, I love that stuff. He reiterated too about the proper punch again, and I was like, "This is some great stuff. I love that. I love that stuff." You know.
So yeah, man. Matthew Novastar. Oh shoot, Novastar Carauddo.
Well, it's really hard to say. It's Carauddo, but
Carauddo.
I was totally.
yeah,
I was
don't
about
worry.
to say that.
It's a tough name to say. It's Italian. It's not that common. Chances are, if anybody else has the same spelling, they're probably related to me. But yeah, it's a tough one to say.
Being Italian.
So what's the now your show is called Novastar.
I don't have any particular show. For me, it's just like, I don't know. I'm kind of a weird bird, but for the last 12 years, I did a bunch of all live lightsaber style performances, and I was kind of heavily involved in the Star Wars community in it to a certain extent, mostly the saber community. And I'm kind of known for doing a lot of sound work, all the sound work that goes into most of the lightsaber props out there in the world. Maybe not all of them, but quite a bit of them. I'm kind of responsible for a good amount of that. Although now there's many what we call sound font artists, and what that really is, to try to explain it to you as quickly as I can, is so obviously a lightsaber prop. I mean, back in the 70s, it was just sticks. It was nothing. Even for the films, they just say, put a stick in their hand, we'll put the graphics later.
Yeah,
As you guys probably know, in today's world, now that the technology has really caught up with LEDs and batteries and everything's smaller, and circuit boards, you can fit all that basically in a handle that's metal and store all the electronics in there, and it can power a fairly bright lightsaber prop. Well, obviously, in addition to the light, you need sound. So you have ignition sound. You have sound of the saber going off. You have the idle sound of it just hum, almost like a car, once it's idling, obviously. Yeah. And then you have swing noises and collision noises, obviously, when they collide together, and even other fancy stuff like lock up, like when it's sizzling against another saber. There's all sorts of crazy bananas, sounds. It's fun. That's the point. Sound effects. Back it kind of harkens to the old kung fu movies that, if they just said action and they do the fight scene, they're moving their arms around and people are punching, but that doesn't have any real sound in the real world most of the time. You don't hear nothing. But of course, right? Kung fu movies, you'd hear, you dishonor my family, now we'll fight.
Yeah. And they're really just like banging trash cans together and shit.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it heightens the drama. So obviously when George Lucas decided, okay, we're going to do these laser swords, he's like, all right, now these got to have some pretty awesome sounds. They hired Ben Burt, and the rest is history. So he did all the sound work for that. But when the props came out and we started building these lightsaber props and the ability to put custom sounds in there occurred, I sort of appeared in the mix on that, and I started designing my own sounds for them. So, for example, I've made about 100+ packages of these sound sets. So, for example, you might say, I want it to sound like Obi-Wan in episode 4. So I'm like, fine, sounds like that. Or how about a fire sword? I'm like, fine, fire sword. Ice sword, electricity, He-Man style. Make a sword sounds like that, What other things? It could be like a regular steel sword. So you just hear, So I've designed these sets of sounds for the last 10 or so years. And so there you go. I mean, that was the quickest I could explain it, but it's sort of like it's a strange rabbit hole to go down. But I basically designed the sounds that go in live lightsaber props for the last 10 years or so.
Now, obviously, you've been doing these lightsaber performances for quite some time. Are there other lightsaber performances out there?
Absolutely, exactly. I was never really the first one with all those things, although it's arguable that I might have been one of the first ones to put together a fairly competent and complete performance that was,
Not just
you know,
kids fucking around and shit.
well, yeah, I mean, that was the thing. Like, so the first performance I ever put together was 10 people on stage. So we had 5 pairs of fighters. And it also had a storyline. I crafted it so it was quick. It was only a 5-minute show. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but 5 minutes of fighting is still it's still not something to scoff at. But the point being is it had sort of a structure. You know, there's like you see the young Padawan and a young Jedi girl, and they discover something's wrong. Then the evil guy comes in and he's taunting the Padawan and takes his saber away. Then the master has to come in and save him briefly, and then more bad guys come and more good guys come, and then they're like, all right, that's it, it's on. And then, you know, it's sort of like building to this crescendo. Then they all start fighting, of course, and then all the good guys kill most of the bad guys, and it's only the Dark Master left, and then he kills the girl. And then he runs off, and the story sort of ends there, and then, you know, they're like mourning her loss. So I basically just kind of told you this 5-minute plot, but the point is, it was one of the first times that I recall, at least on stage, that there was an actual story going on. There was dialogue. There was sound,
I'm enthralled
music.
now, man. The point is like we need a sequel to that. I want to know what happens.
Well, you can, because it does happen. Balance of Power 2 is also out there. And again, these are sort of rickety performances in terms of nowadays. Like, everything's a lot more polished in HD footage. But I did all this stuff in 2005 and 6 for the first one, and then 2006 and 7 for the second one. And I always had planned to Balance of Power 3, but it just never happened because doing it live was going to be too difficult, and it was difficult to get casts for these kinds of things because it demanded quite a bit from performers. They had to be very, very willing to go the distance for this stuff. It's not easy, like some of the things that I put together. However, as years progressed, I sort of dropped doing any of the Balance of Power things. Those are just my own ideas and shows. But what I did is I also created in, I want to say it was 2014, the first ever live Empire Strikes Back recreation of the fight and scene between Vader. So it starts basically where Luke flies off in the X-Wing, and that's really just voiceovers with him and Yoda saying, you know, you can't go, you know, if you value what your friends, you know, oh, that's right. I also do the Yoda one. You know, Yoda, you seek Yoda. So, so we did all this stuff, and then we of course approached the whole where Luke approaches Vader on Bespin. We go through that whole scene, do the fight, and then at the end when he's telling him, you know, Luke, you do not yet realize your importance. You know, so we did the whole thing, and it was just. It was a strange brainchild of mine that I was just like talking with a friend, basically saying this guy Gary Ripper, who makes these wonderful lightsaber props. Shout out to Gary Ripper. You guys got to go look up ripperblades.com. Yeah. Or at least I hope that's the website, Ripper Blades. But Gary was my Vader for that project, and basically we were just friends, and we were, you know, doing some stuff. He wanted me to teach him some saber combat moves, because that's obviously something else that I would do, would teach them martial arts and fencing and saber combat stuff. And he said, what if we, you know, what do you think if we ever did a Vader and Luke thing? I'm like, well, maybe. And then we sort of went down that rabbit hole, and I said, hey, I wonder what it would be like to recreate the whole damn thing live. So we did. And it was, let me tell you, it was simultaneously very exciting, but also a bloody nightmare. It was so much work, you know.
I feel like anything that's really good would be like that, though. Like,
it's true.
Yeah, it just that happens.
And I actually want to go back to the complexity of this whole thing. Like, how hard and how long does it take to get all your ducks aligned and for you to pull off one of these performances?
Oh wow, that's a really good question, and it's also a very complicated one. So the best way to explain it is you have to kind of break it all down into sections, for one thing. And we're not just talking about the fight scene, we're just talking about the goal at hand. So, for example, with the Empire Strikes Back scene, some of the first things that I had to start thinking about right from the get-go, even though they weren't going to get solved right away, is I was like, all right, so how are we going to gas Vader in the face? Because at one portion of the thing, Luke gets disarmed, which wouldn't be that hard. So we knew that we could do that. But then, you know, Luke climbs up on this kind of pipe or whatever, which I knew we weren't going to be able to do on stage. No one was going to let me climb into the rafters or something crazy. But we would just do something different. But the point is that the way that he gets his saber back is Vader's about to attack him. He holds up this hose that Vader's cut in trying to go after him. I mean, if you're familiar with Empire Strikes Back, you'd know what I mean. Yeah. And then he holds that hose up, and it gasses Vader in the face with, I don't know, arguably smoke or something. And that distracts him long enough so Luke can hold out his hand, call his saber back, and power it on, and then join the fight again. And, that's when he's like, Obi-Wan has taught you well. So you're like, ooh, groovy. So we had to think, are we going to do this as a live effect? Because how are we going to do this? And then that makes you go down a rabbit hole. So some people were like, well, we could use some kind of fire extinguisher style thing. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work. If we do that, Gary has fans inside his mask, and it will suction all that right into his lungs. So that's an absolute no-go. It's way too dangerous. No way. And then some people are like, well, what if we did like a powder kind of thing so you get to see this poof of stuff? I'm all, again, no good. It'll go, first of all, even if you didn't breathe it in, by holding his breath, let's say, just randomly, and not that you would do that, he'd have cocaine all over his face. Look like Cocaine Vader, you don't want that.
See, I feel like that's really wise thinking, because we'd freaking do that. If we came across that same problem and someone mentioned fire extinguisher, we'd be like, well, problem solved, bro. Let's do this.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You just got to think it through. Plus, those things tend to be heavy.
We would have found that out via trial and error. He would have went and let's say I'm that guy. Would have went into my mask. Oh no, can't do that. Move on.
Exactly. So, and there's just so many logistics to it. Half the time on stage, not to be there's so many details I could tell you. You have to understand that with Gary in that costume, the vision that he has is extremely limited. Even under the best conditions, there's no two ways about it. If you are wearing a Darth Vader mask, and believe me, I know, I have suited up as Vader myself and converted myself into a taller dude. That's another story. Because I also recreated live the Obi-Wan and Vader fight, in which case I was Vader, not Luke. Anyway, and not Obi-Wan. But anyway, I needed to make sure Gary was safe at all times, which is ironic because as Luke, I wanted to fight him and give to the audience that feeling that I was trying to harm him and defeat him, obviously. But at the same time, during the performance, what people don't understand is I was taking care of him throughout the performance, making sure I was absolutely in the correct positions and that he was too. I could never back him into a wall, never wanted him to trip over any. It's so weird. When you're talking about live performance, there's so many different things.
That is anticlimactic, Matthew.
I'm so
we
sorry.
know there's nothing really at stake here.
I know, right? Exactly. And then now again, you were like, well, what about these other things, and what did you have to, what's the process and how long? So another thing we had to think about, obviously, was I'm like, okay, how are we going to cut off my hand? And some people are like, oh, just, tuck up your sleeve and pretend. I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's cheesy.
Yeah, everyone knows the actual length of an arm,
Yeah, so I totally did it for, quote unquote real. I won't, obviously my real hand was not cut off, but I made sure that at the end of the show, literally you see a hand get chopped off, it's still attached to the saber and lands on the stage, still attached to the saber when he cuts off my hand. And a lot of people were like, oh my God, what the hell? They were surprised because they didn't know how I did it. And I probably don't need to tell anybody.
Yeah, no, you got to keep your own your movie magic secrets.
I'm just saying, we've done a hand chop off scene before.
We've done more than that, man. We did a head chop off scene. We've done body chop off scenes with the camera and having the luxury of movie magic and camera angle tricks and all that, and we still fucked it up.
We're talking about doing it live.
Yeah, you did that shit live, and I'm saying we did that shit with the camera and all those luxuries, and it looked like crap.
well, that's too bad because with the right film angles, you can pull it off and stuff. But anyway, so
we got a styrofoam head
to figure out. Then there's the staging, right? There's the staging. So I'm like, okay, Gary, how are we going to do this? So what we would do is I'd measure out in rehearsal spaces because we couldn't rehearse in the performance spaces. Okay, 14 feet by this is approximating this is this. Okay, we go this way. Then when I'm fighting you, we turning around. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You're going to go over here. You exit here. When you disappear, I go over here. There's so much staging, and you got to be perfect. You can't miss a beat because I'd be like, too far to the left and you're in the audience, too far to the right and we're out of position. If we go at this angle, the audience is going to miss most of these fight moves. So you have to be fairly specific about it. And unfortunately, it takes a long time. I would say, I know I'm getting circuitously to the answer of your question, but it takes about 6 to 8 months, I would say, to pull off a pretty good live saber kind of performance that has any length to it. I mean, if it's only 2 minutes long, which I never really did anything that short, it's just that's too easy. You could do that in no big deal. But like when it was a production, when you're like, hey, like my girlfriend here, this is Alexandra. You want to say hi?
Hello.
Hello. How's it going?
There we go. I'll let because I have my headphones on. There we go.
Hi there.
Hey, do you fight in these saber battles?
Yeah, I did do one.
She was my Ray for a Kylo Ren versus Ray fight. And
That's cool.
Yeah, and she was awesome. She was super awesome.
You.
Basically, she didn't have any staged combat experience, and then when she and I were meeting and starting to work on this kind of thing, I was just like, okay, well, I'll train you, and we'll have a good time with it, and we'll learn together. And so basically, I trained her. She's doing awesome. She's amazing. Like, I've never seen anybody memorize this quickly. And she was pretty damn wonderful as Ray. She's also super gorgeous, so,
Job,
I might be biased. I'm biased, right?
What specific Kylo Ren versus Rey fight was it? Was it for 7 at the end?
Oh, right. So the one that we did was the first one where they fight because...
Yeah, there's multiple ones now. There wasn't when we first did it.
When we first performed it, the Star Wars 8 had not yet come out yet, so there was
Just
no way.
the one.
It's on it's on YouTube, so you guys can find it on my channel. And we performed that one in several places, but
We should do the one with the pre-recording parts, though. That'd be cool.
I know we should. She's saying we should do the one from 8, and I'm like, that's right. But the one from 7, we did at Wizard World Con in Sacramento.
I'm listening.
Okay. Xandra's heading out, by the way. So bye.
Nice talking to you.
See you later. No, that was World Con.
Yeah, so she was taking off. She's got to go do some. She's doing some stuff with her friends.
That's cool.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's another one, and that pretty much encapsulates all the different live saber fights that I did. Basically, we did Empire Strikes Back. We did the ANH fight, the Obi-Wan versus Vader, Kylo versus Rey, and then I did my other ones again more in 2005, 6, and 7, Balance of Power, which are just my own ones, and then all the other ones are all like smaller performances in different places, and just not as super exciting.
Sometimes do they not even have a plot? It's just some people fighting.
Correct. In fact, those are the ones that I prefer. I didn't like doing those as much because to me they're not as memorable and they're not as exciting, and they don't carry well over time for obvious reasons.
We saw 2 people fight before with lightsabers. Why? Well, they didn't explain.
Precisely, and it's funny you mention that because that's one of the things that I tried to, at least for my work, is I wanted to stand out in a different way where I was like, and this may come from my theatrical background, is I'm like, people fight for a reason. People have drama and scenes and structure to these things for good reason. That's why, like, even when you see Jackie Chan, even Jackie Chan knows it's not just about fighting. One of the best things that people could ever learn about Jackie Chan is he is brilliant with how to set up a scene and how to do action comedy. There's a great video on a channel that is now not producing any more content, but is still a wonderful channel called Every Frame a Painting. Big shout out to Every Frame a Painting, and they have a wonderful analysis, which is also exciting to watch, of Jackie Chan, and it's literally called How to Do Action Comedy, and it's definitely one of the best analyses of Jackie Chan's brilliance and work that I've ever seen, and it really does help people, I think, understand the difference between, I just want exciting fight scene, blah, 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 and you're like, no, you don't understand. If you want it to look like Jackie Chan, you're going to have to delve deeper into things than just saying, I punch really fast, I kick really well, I do some spins and so forth.
Something has to be at stake.
It's not exciting just to watch action.
Yeah.
Action for action's sake is not exciting, even though some people will think that. They're wrong. Action
Although-
is exciting when you have something to believe in, when you are connected with one or more of the characters, then you start to really feel it, and you understand that there's a drama. Usually what Jackie would do to is his most important thing. Think about it. Jackie's biggest thing was he was always in trouble.
Yeah,
He was always the
yeah, he
underdog.
really was. Yeah, he was the Fred Flintstone of martial arts, you know.
Yep, he was always in a bind, and like, in fact, even in every frame of painting, it's so funny the way that he explains it. He's like, if his opponent is standing, Jackie's laying on the ground. If his opponent has a gun, then Jackie is unarmed. If if the opponent is standing, then Jackie has a bomb in his mouth. You know, and I'm like, it's so true. Like, he's always screwed. Something makes him screwed. And notice all the time, Jackie's like, I don't want to fight you. I don't want to fight. No, stop. No, stop. I don't fight you. You know, he's always like, I don't want to do that. He's not like the Jet Li and the Bruce Lee where it was always tough guy, I'm going to kill you. Jackie said, I don't want to do that. I'm going to do a different style of character. I'm going to
Michael Jai
stop
White, you know.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't devalue what Bruce Lee and Jet Li did, but it shows that Jackie Chan had his own style, which was fantastic, which is way better to connect with, which is, we all do that. We connect with underdogs. That's why everybody likes Luke Skywalker, because he starts off as a farm boy and he's got nothing, and life sucks for him, and we feel it, we see it, and we resonate, because we're like, yeah, my life sucks too. I have a dead-end job. Like, and then you see him go bring himself up and become a hero and have this team of people around him. Well, this is the same thing with Jackie Chan. He always sets himself up in the beginning as he doesn't know what's going on. Something is wrong. He's weaker. There's no information. People are lying to him. He's in trouble. And then somehow he digs his ass out of it.
I mean, I agree with you there. Like, you got to have climax, or there's got to be conflict. Something's got to be at stake. But I don't like it whenever the character's like, oh, like, I'm so reluctant to fight. I just don't want to hurt anybody. We get it. You're a good person. Get to annihilating people.
Oh,
get to the violence. Like, yeah, dude, I'm different. Like, to each his own. And, like, I'm jaded. I'm like, man, like, just man up and go to work.
Okay, so
you
Keenan is the one person that does not like Jackie Chan, and I've hated him for it.
That's fine.
I've hated
everybody
Keenan
has tastes. There's no
well,
reason
it's
to hate
because of that
everybody
99.9% of the time, there's that ridiculous goofball comedy that comes with this fighting, and I just want to see people get fucked up.
Oh my goodness.
Well, let's see here. Then let me think. What's the you probably like Jason Statham, right?
I do, but at the same time, I think that Jason Statham will not say no to any movie. He was in The Name of the King, for God's sakes. You know, he did a Yui Paul movie.
Yes, that is a good point. Why would you agree to be in a Yui Bowl movie when that's
you have
almost like
I don't say no
Mark.
philosophy to your work. That's when.
Mark.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, hi, doggy. Right. Yeah. How did they make that movie too? I can't believe they made The Disaster Artist. That's so funny too. I know that wasn't Yui Bowl, but what I'm saying is like another director.
No,
where
but
you're
It
like,
was Yui Bowl.
Oh, no, y'all see he's coming out with a...
What, Yui
the
Boll's still
no,
doing?
no,
You scared me.
Oh, hi, Mark. What's his
I was
name?
like, I thought we were rid of him.
What's his real name?
Who?
oh, I know. I forget. Well, no, the other, because there's Yui Bowl and then there's this other guy. What is that guy? The Disaster Artist was... oh, see, now I'm blanking.
I don't know, but
Well, there's like another bad director that followed up.
The guy that made the original movie.
What
The
original
Room.
movie?
It's called The Room. Oh,
The
Tommy
Room.
Wiseau is his name.
Tommy Wiseau. He's making
Yeah, I had
the
to
Big
think.
Shark
I'm
movie.
sorry.
You see that? He's making a Big Shark. The Big
I did.
Shark.
My girlfriend showed me because she loves making
Is this
fun
like some
of, you know,
Sharknado shit?
Tommy Wiseau.
No, it's like they're just standing. They're like standing on a road, and the road just starts flooding, and then a big shark just starts eating people.
Does the shark look like PS1 graphics and shit?
I can't remember. I
Sounds
blanked it out.
brilliant, right? You're like, oh lord.
Oh my goodness.
But no, you see, unlike a lot of people, I'm totally like people want to see the character like get into like a bind that he's got to get out of. You know, there's got to be conflict. The character can't just go through the movie mowing people down without no problem. And I'm the kind of guy that's like, I beg to differ. John Wick's a great movie. You know.
Well, yeah, no, it's funny you mention that because it's two different styles. Like, think about it. Back in the day, that's what Predator, in a way, was
the bad guy
although
mowing
it
people
had
down
two
like that.
sides. Where Predator, he did have to dig himself out of it, but there was also, of course, Commando. And Commando was just literally, Arnold Schwarzenegger waving a gun
Fucking
around.
people.
He's killing
Yeah.
everybody.
See, I love that shit. Just juggernaut shit,
two different styles. Yeah, those are two different styles. But think about it. Even Die Hard is more like Predator, where they're underdogs. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger was the underdog in Predator because, he's stuck in this bind. This alien creature is way more powerful than him, and he's getting his ass handed to him from it, even though they're tough guys. It's a beautiful movie too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you can't you can't even some people would say, well, that's right, Predator and Die Hard. I wonder whether it's so similar. I'm like, that's because they were directed by the same damn guy.
Yeah, and he had his formula down.
Fantastic director. Yeah, he's a fantastic director, and he's fantastic at taking an action hero and making sure to beat him down and put him in these situations where it just sucks. Like who can ever forget Bruce Willis having to step over all that glass?
Oh man, I know. And like at that time, that was every viewer put themselves in that position. Like, and they cringed,
Yes.
And that was brutal back then. That was like, oh my god, this shit's crazy.
Huge shout out to Alan Rickman too. Like, God, we miss him.
Oh man,
God.
yeah.
Shoot the glass. I mean, he was fantastic in that role. I heard too that the first scene that he had to film. Because he has this very thick accent. I can't do his voice at all. I can't do it.
No one but Alan Rickman can. We'll never hear that voice again.
Although it's funny. My girlfriend Zandra, she does a excellent Alan Rickman. I'm not kidding. If Alan Rickman were female, she knows how to do it. But anyway, he the first scene that he had to shoot was the one where Bruce Willis's character McClane finds him on the roof, and he's like, "Oh, please don't kill me. I just was afraid the terrorists would come." And he said he was petrified because, he had all this classical training, and of course he had this very, I don't know what his accent is, to be honest. I don't even know. British English. Yeah, I don't know British English.
He's got to be, because in the original Harry Potter's, J.K. wouldn't let anyone in the movie who wasn't British or English, like you from the UK.
Maybe that's it.
So he's got to be from the UK, somewhere within the UK.
Oh, I'm sure, and I don't remember exactly. But either way, he was just saying how he's like, it was so petrifying that he's like the first scene out of the gate, because they had hired me for this character, and of course I was going to be able to use my voice and be very astute and a villain and have this diction and education. But he's like, the first scene out of the gate, I had to do this American accent, and I was just so worried, is what he had said. But obviously he nailed it, and he was fantastic, and it's such a great thing. And that's the thing. That's another thing that's wonderful about actors, is when they can really, connect to the audience and find those ways to draw you in so that you remember it 20 years later, 30 years later, 40 years later. You're still talking about it. That's when you know that movie, that actor, that scene, it was a good scene. You don't remember, certain movies, you go like, oh, it was a good action movie. I don't remember anything about it. 20 years later, you don't know anything about it. But you go, oh, who doesn't remember Raiders of the Lost Ark? Who doesn't remember Predator, and so on? It's because, everything comes together. The writing, the acting, the directing, and just, all these epic moments.
I totally agree. Actually, I want to go back to you for a little bit. How'd you come up with this Gray Tail Novastar character?
That is funny that you mentioned that. So, not that many people have asked me about that, but some of the people over the years, I tell them the same story. So, Gray Tail was basically what I came up with when I was a super young kid. I don't know why, but I kind of just invented that as
it's
to
just
be a
like
nice, cool.
You're a character of your own within the Star Wars universe, right?
Something like that. I don't know if I would call it that. I mean, not officially in any manner. That would be an honor. But so the name Gray Tail, just at least that name, that was something I made up as a child when I was literally maybe 7. And I also always entered it in all my video games because you could only do 8 characters back then. And I always thought, well, I don't want to be Matthew and I don't want to be Bob, or I should have a cool name, right? I don't know why. You're a kid. You don't know what you're thinking.
No, like I know exactly what you mean. Like everyone had their one handle that they used in every single game that allowed you. Mine was Blaine. It was always just straight up Blaine.
There you go.
I think that's a cool name.
I remember a lot of people would change them or whatever, but I don't know. I'm weird that way. I stuck with it throughout the years. Then the reason I decided, okay, that's not good enough. I can't say Gray Tail for a Star Wars character. When I was doing these Balance of Power productions, and I was inventing all these names for all these characters and whatnot, I was like, I got to come up with something that's more like, Skywalker and all this stuff without making it straight up that. So this is going to take you guys back, maybe depending on what you know or don't know. But
I know.
So when I was a child in the 80s, there was a very famous cartoon going on called Star Blazers. Star Blazers was also known in Japan as Yamato. And it actually was sort of about a real ship, the Yamato, which was sunk by the U.S. In, I want to say it was World War II, I'm pretty certain. But anyway, what this show was is it kind of elevated this ship, the Yamato, into space, and then these space adventures go on this quest to save Earth, which is being attacked in some way. And it was one of the first anime shows that had I want to call it a serial kind of style. In other words, it was episodal, where you literally had to watch all of the episodes to truly understand. So it was not like Inspector Gadget or your regular cartoons where it would just be one and done. Yeah, this one you had to watch the whole thing. But anyway, in this cartoon there were these two characters. There was Wildstar and a character, sort of a nurse character named Nova. So I just decided to combine the two, and that's where I came up with Novastar with it. And that's all there is to it. It was just something from my childhood that I...
It sounds very Star Wars. It does.
Yeah. And that's another reason why I chose it, because I was like, well...
Did you use that name? Did you play Knights of the Old Republic or the Old Republic?
I have played one of those games. I played probably the older one. I was never much into the turn-based kind of ones. Like, I liked games more like Jedi Outcast and Academy, Dark Forces, all that stuff. The old school ones.
Those are good games.
I'm pretty old school now. Like, I literally haven't played a lot of video games of the...
I'm just a fan of open world. Like, if you don't have open world, you kind of lose me immediately.
Yeah.
That's me, though. That's me as a gamer.
No, I know what you mean. Like, I was a big fan of Skyrim. That I played that game forever in 2011 and 12. It was hilarious. But anyway, yeah, like I haven't played a whole lot of Star Wars games, but yeah, I just chose Novastar because it sounds Star Warsy. It worked. And then also, what happened is once I chose that name and that was the master's name in my first production, literally people from the community just started calling me that. So I was like, okay, I guess this stuck. And so literally, I would be in my videos. And sometimes I would start my video and I'd be like, hey guys, Novastar here. Anyways, let me show you a little bit about this lightsaber and this. And it just stuck. Like, people literally just called me Nova, from then on.
That's like, there's so many people out there who, like, they want so bad to choose their own nickname, and they're like, I'm gonna have people call me fucking Spike, because it sounds cool. They're like, and he tells all his friends, alright, y'all gotta call me Spike now. And they're like, no, dude, that's fucking retarded. We're not calling you Spike. Alright, but it's like, that worked for you.
Well, I guess it was a partial thing where it's like, how they always say a nickname isn't, you don't just invent it, it gets earned or whatever, or given.
Yeah.
And in a way, it was sort of a hybrid because I made it for the characcher.
Exactly. You didn't just go to your friends and be like, y'all gotta call me Novastar now. You also did these live, the lightsaber battles. And it was appropriate to call you Novastar.
Yeah, to a point. I mean, it was funny. It was a little disconcerting in the beginning, but I sort of just went, whatever, that's fine. If people want to call me Novastar, it's easier. And besides, it's more memorable than, if they say Matthew, it's too common a name, and nobody could pronounce or spell my last name. So I was like, this is probably just fine.
It's Carauddo, isn't it?
Yeah, so it was just sort of one of those things. I went down these rabbit holes. Like, I didn't know all the things that were going to happen to me in these last 10 to 12 years. I had really no idea. I didn't know that I was going to be making sound profiles and sound sets for lightsabers. Again, ignition sounds and lockup and swings and I didn't know. That wasn't what I had set out to do. I had no idea that I'd eventually sort of cobble together and build my own Darth Vader costume and then suit myself up as Darth Vader.
No shit, this costume, like the costume of Darth Vader that we're seeing in your videos is like, you made that?
Well, to a point. It started off as what's called a Ruby's Supreme edition of the costume, which categorically the people who love the 501st costume legions and those kinds of things, they don't like that costume because it's not screen accurate, which is true. However, myself and Gary, again, my Vader for the Empire Strikes Back show, Gary would modify his own helmets all the time. He's a very, very amazing artist, and he really does work well with his hands. He builds so many different things. He will he just crafts things. He's a good craftsman. But anyway, he helped me modify that mask so it was a lot more screen accurate, or at least more towards that. And to a certain point, I didn't care about screen accuracy. I was trying to build a costume where I could convert my ridiculous height, at least for Vader, because I'm about 5'6", and that doesn't make a good Vader. No way. But when I'm in the costume, I'm ended up about 6'2" or 3. No joke.
Oh,
and it was a lot of work to make that work with the scale. Like, also, in addition to getting taller, I make myself wider, or at least we give the illusion of it. So when I'm fighting in that costume and people see me in that costume, I'm not even a shadow of what I normally look like. In fact, some of my most favored experiences is when I literally would I'd arrive at an event and they'd be like, oh, hey, Matthew, okay, go back in the back, change, and do this stuff. And I'd go and do the Vader thing, and I'd come out, of course, a different person. Then I'd go back and change, come back out, and they'd be like, oh, Matthew, oh, you missed it. The Darth Vader is here. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here, really? And it's the funniest thing, because they would not know. And how would you? Would you expect that me, kind of an athletic 5'6" Italian dude, then I'll disappear and suddenly Vader's walking out? You don't put it together, because I look so different, look totally different. My voice, I use the vocal change, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, in addition to me using my voice and speaking lower, more like James Earl Jones as Vader, in addition to doing that, I literally have electronics that deepen my voice more and give it that mechanical feel. So,
That's awesome. Yeah, man. That's crazy that you and you put all that together, right?
Well, like I said, it's sort of a hybrid. Like, it started out as a sort of not a store-bought costume, but like I bought this costume used online from some guy, and so then you get this costume, and I'm like, okay, I know I have a lot of work to do on it, because I kind of already did the research ahead of time, and so like I have a whole list of things that I changed on it. In fact, I'm trying to sell it right now, because I don't think I'll be using it anymore as I keep moving forward with my life and everything. But the point is, so let's see, the mask was modified, the cape chain was completely changed out.
So like,
I had the cape altered, I had the tunic altered, I wore these very special lift boots that really increased my height by 5 or 6 inches. I installed fans in the mask, I installed the vocal changer, I changed the lights on the boxes, I give myself a new belt. It's very, very extensive changes that were made to it, and all of which, of course, were to be conducive for live performance, and at the same time to make me taller. And I had the benefit of being able to install literally desktop speakers in my shoulders, or well, above shoulders, because I'm trying to, it's hard to explain, I'm faking
and
my
you have
height,
to actually be able to fight in this thing. You can't, it's different when you're doing it on film, when you're doing it with the camera, and you can take takes and you can cut and you can edit, but you had to be able to fight live on stage whilst being taller. It couldn't have just been stilts underneath your feet. I mean, you wouldn't have been able to fight like that, right?
It's funny you mentioned. So yeah, one of the biggest faux pas you could make if you were doing Vader is to wear platform shoes. That would be a bad.
I was thinking like some Kiss shoes,
Well, the reason is because you can't feel the balls of your feet and kind of push off. I can't even really explain it. It's an athletic thing. But so what I was in, it was an extreme lift. So basically you could think of it that I was in extreme high heels, but with a strong base. But it's really hard to explain. But the point is, I was still able to fight in them, but my feet had to be at this extreme angle all the time within the shoes. And it was, I'm not going to lie, it's
some tough-looking ballerina shoes is what they are.
To a point, it really was, because all we were doing was cheating an extra 5 or 6 inches of height, and in addition to that, I wore the mask in a very, very specific and weird way. I was actually looking through Vader's grill, the diamond-shaped grill, where his mouth would normally be. I was looking through there. And also, that gave me the benefit of the lenses wouldn't fog up, because I wasn't looking through the lenses. I was looking through this grill. So it's really complicated to explain, but
Yeah.
I pulled it off, and people can see some of those videos on my channel, which is youtube.com/sabercombat. So if people wanted to look that up, again, youtube.com/sabercombat, and there's just a myriad of videos they would, go and look at and traverse. They'll see stuff on sound fonts. They'll see live performances. They'll see when I was teaching some classes at Google. That was amazing. It's been a very interesting 10 to 12 years.
Now, what something that a lot of people probably would probably wonder about this is, I'm assuming that these are paid gigs. What exactly is the legality of putting on these performances? And like, does it fall under the same umbrella as maybe like the Star Wars books that a lot of people published, or is it, especially the Disney acquisition?
You're saying, is there any hashtag copyright?
Well, there's really nothing I can speak on about all that kind of stuff like that. Paid gigs are not something that I would normally do. It would be the kind of thing that I would only do it for, demos and this kind of stuff like that, like benefits. So I wouldn't get paid most of the time. The only time I would ever get paid is when I was doing my own thing, like teaching fencing classes, which again, I taught fencing for many decades. I was a competitive fencer for many, many years. I had my share of golds and silvers and bronzes. Nothing Olympic or anything, but I used to compete. So I created my own saber combat system, which I have some DVDs that I also used to sell. I don't really do that as much anymore. I mean, I guess if people want them now, they can order them if they like. But I made those in the past to help people learn about saber combat. But that was kind of my own system and my own way of teaching, along with an associate who helped me do this as well. His name is Mark Prater. And I think he's still in the saber community doing his thing. He goes by Kane.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but you know what I mean is like, so no, it's like most of the time, the only thing I'm getting paid for is like when I would teach saber combat classes within my own system, and the whole point is I'm not using any licensed term. Like I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want people to steal my work.
Right.
So I would teach things that were my own business. So I wouldn't say we're going to learn a Luke Skywalker move. I'd be like, we're going to learn how to block leg, and you attack head here. It's basically in a way like I borrowed a lot of stuff to do from fencing and worked in stuff like from kendo. I used to study kendo for several years, and the point was always to educate people and let them learn and have them have a fun time. Like a lot of times everybody's just having so much fun. Like I'd say, okay, you're going to make your own fight scene by the end of the class. It's going to be great. You guys are going to have a great time. We'll film it. It not perfect, but I'd be like, you get to say, hey, look, I did a lightsaber fight with, my buddy Bob, back in 2012, and here I'll show you friend X and friend Y. So it was just, well, it's true, right? Like, because, it's like you can only get so far with that stuff. You're not going to expect someone to get 20 years of martial arts experience all in, I don't know, a month's time or 2 months' time or whatever. It's kind of like, if you took a karate class.
If you use a montage, that's what movies have taught me. You're going to need a montage.
Right, you sure can. Yes. Right. But you know what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, like, no, we would do this kind of stuff. But it's true. Like, I did. We had these DVDs. My sound fonts are available for purchase, and they still are to this day through saberfonts.com, and that's how hundreds of thousands of people, I would guess, buy their sound work that they install into their sabers. So there's just, it's weird. It's weird to see how far the rabbit hole has gone with all this kind of work, but most of it was always in the name of innovation and trying something new. Like, again, when I was like sitting there going, sitting there thinking to myself, and I'm like, I wonder what it would be like to recreate the Empire Strikes Back fight live. And my friends are like, "What are you, out of your damn mind?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I probably
like hell."
am, but
that's what it would be like, Nedley. Hell. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to try it. I figured that's kind of how my mind works. Like, that's why I'm writing the screenplay that I was doing. I was like, I wonder what it'd be like to write a really awesome hero's journey, but do it in a completely different style and a lot of fun and all this kind of stuff like this. And I'm like, I know enough about drama and writing and characters and setting. Basically, everything is just setups and payoffs, is what they all are. But the point is, I've been having a lot of fun with that, and I'm getting some voice actors involved in that. There's just there's a lot of things that I do as an artist, and that's pretty much the rabbit hole I've been following. So not everything I've done is always revolved around Star Wars, although for the last 10 or 12 years, I think in the public eye, the community would be like, oh, that's what this guy's all about. He's all Star Wars, and that's it. And
you said something about a Wizard 101 convention?
It's called Wizard World Con.
Yeah,
It's a pretty famous convention, circuit.
Yeah.
And Wizard World is, I don't know if I would say it's all over the world, but it's definitely a United States thing. But it just so happened we performed the Kylo Ren versus Rey fight from, again, the Star Wars 7 version or something to that extent. A recreation of it, I should at least say. In Sacramento, California. And that was in 2017 or 18? I don't remember which. And again, that's on my channel somewhere, so you guys would have to look it up, and you could see it. We did some cool stuff too. Like I wanted to try some live blaster effects there, and it worked like a charm. It was awesome. It's hard to explain.
Some pew-pews. Pew.
Yeah, like she fires the blaster at me, and it fires sparks, and then I was able to do some effects too. So it looks like I'm literally deflecting as I swing the the trident saber or whatever you call it, the triple saber, whatever you call it, Kylo Ren's crossguard saber, which I built that. I built my own crossguard saber. But anyway, it looks like I'm deflecting these blaster bolts for a few minutes. And then of course he freezes her arm, and she's like, "What the hell?" We recreated that portion of things as well. So.
Now you said that obviously you're starting to move on. You said from the performances, these live performances.
Right.
Is your next? Do you have multiple projects set up, or are you just focused on this the animated film?
Well, yeah, that's definitely a big part of the focus. But what happened is my girlfriend Zandra, who again you got to meet just briefly there when she had to run out, and she's wonderful, super talented, very dedicated, and doing stuff. She's making her own. She's working on a Stranger Things musical of all things, and it's fucking brilliant. It's so wonderful. I'm really proud of her. But we
can't see it right now, but I'm not in my head. Like, oh yeah, that's cool.
Say again?
Oh no, I said you can't see it right now, but I'm not in my head. Like, that's really cool.
It's exciting. Like you guys would be surprised. I'm even surprised. I'm like, whoa, this is really great.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's see. So we were in the San Jose, San Francisco Bay Area, and then she was like, I want to work at Disneyland. And she had worked previously at the Disney stores. She'd worked in New York before I moved her out to be with me because, we were meeting and we fell in love. So I moved her out to the Bay Area. And then she worked at the Disney store in San Francisco. So she worked at the New York store, the San Francisco store. And then she's like, I really want to try to get in there at Disneyland. I'm like, well, I'm not stopping. Let's do this. I'm like, let's go for it. And she did. She finally landed a job there. And we were like super excited. So I'm like, let's get you out there. It's going to be great. So we moved out here towards Anaheim. So basically we are in Disneyland area, basically.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, well, I have to leave behind all the Saber Combat stuff that I'd done because I had spent all my time building local connections. That's pretty much what my business was all about there. Fencing classes and this thing and, conventions, all these kinds of things. It was all local. And so I was like, well, I think what I'm going to do is revisit acting. I had not done acting since I had been out of college. And so I'm going to try to re-spark that. Because it is something that means so much to me. I mean, it's true that in some ways people say, well, you never stopped acting if you did all these Star Wars things. And well, that's true, but I want to do a little bit more serious work now, as an actor.
Dialogue. Oh, wait, your
right.
shit had dialogue.
Yeah, like if possible. It is very hard. It's very, very difficult, and we'll see. It might not work out. But in addition to that, I had been working on, like I said, on the screenplay, and it's wonderful, too. It's about dragons, of all things. So it's this kind of thing, and I take it all very seriously because I want this stuff to matter. I don't want to just say, okay, I'm going to write a screenplay, and people go, okay, come on, who are you? Well, I do know what I'm doing. All these years of study, all these years of planning, there's a lot of things, that I've had brewing. And so that's what's going on now. She's literally working at Disneyland. She's doing her thing with the Stranger Things musical, which is freaking brilliant. I love it. It's very exciting. She's getting, looking forward to trying to contact the Duffer Brothers and Netflix and see where the rabbit hole goes with that. I'm sitting here working on this this screenplay, which is again a hero's journey. You know, it literally follows that kind of motif, but it's very much like, you know, again, Star Wars, The Matrix, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. It follows that kind of shape.
Well, hey man, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, everyone loves that formula. Like, these movies keep being successful for a reason. And people aren't oblivious. They understand that this movie that they're watching now has like the same construct and formula as the movies that they, you know, their parents grew up on. But they all know if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, they all know. Like, I like this formula, it works, and people will continue to keep seeing those movies.
Yeah, and it's important too, because I mean that kind of formula too goes very far back, further than most people ever imagine.
Oh, yeah, like some Homer shit. And,
what's that?
Or like some shit like Homer and other poets. They all knew that formula.
See, now you're talking, man. That's what I mean. That's what Joseph Campbell taught about. And ironically, George Lucas was a student of Joe Campbell's. And Joe Campbell, of course, wrote The Hero with 1,000 Faces, and his whole kind of body of work revolved around this hero's journey. And it goes as far back even as stories like Beowulf.
Well, what makes me mad, and this is me branching off on a barely tangible subject to this subject.
That's all we're doing. We're having fun here. It's good. I'm
okay,
enjoying
well, like,
it. But what is it?
Aragon came out. Not the movie. Fuck the movie. We're not talking about the goddamn movie. All right, but the books came out, and and people were critical of the books too. They're like, "Oh, look at this." The kid was 15 with his first book, so like they're like, "Oh, look at this kid. He's literally ripping off verbatim the general plot
and nobody
of
wanted
Star Wars."
And nobody wanted it, and the parents. They were just rich enough to publish it
themselves.
That's
bullshit, because dude, yeah, that's like if Star Wars never happened because he was ripping off the same concept that he learned from, that George Lucas learned from these old ass poets
from
and shit.
Joe Campbell and right, exactly, Homer. Right. No, what you're saying is,
it's like, fuck you. We know he's ripping off Star Wars, and we enjoy it. You know?
Right.
Oh my god.
In a way, here's the thing. This is the irony. Is that, and what we're talking about, gentlemen, here is education. People who are not educated are going to look at something and not understand it. Yeah. I mean, it's a very ironic thing, but think about it like this. How can you understand something and understand that you are stupid about something if you're very, very stupid about something?
It's because arrogance and pride. People don't want to admit that they're stupid about anything.
But the irony, gentlemen, is, right, if you don't know about something, you will not recognize if you are making errors with it. I'll give you an example. So many people over the years, they'd come up to me because I've been teaching fencing classes, right? I'm teaching fencing classes, and they, "Oh, Matthew, I always loved the idea of learning about fencing." I'm like, "Oh, good. You know, did you ever take a class?" "No, but I always knew I'd be good at it." I'm like, "Really? How would you know?" And they're like, "Oh, well, I see the movies and I love Zorro."
Deep down in my heart, you know.
And I'm like, okay, look, you are aware though that fencing and actual swordplay is almost nothing like what you see in the films, right? Is what I'd ask them. They're like, "Oh no, I don't know. I just think I'd be great at it." And man, all the swashbuckling and swinging the swords around. I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You
just fake it till you make it, bro.
They think they think they'd be good at something, but they have no idea. And honestly, sometimes I give these lessons to these adults. I remember I gave this lesson to this one adult who was so excited and raring to go. And when I started teaching the most basic fencing lesson, I mean, it's true. They were kind of bored out of their mind and they didn't understand. And
they want to do backflips and shit. Yeah.
What's that?
I said they want to do backflips and parry and some Three Musketeers shit.
And what was basically happening is sort of like, not to bring it back to Michael J. White, but it's exactly the kind of thing I was trying to teach this person, sort of Michael J. White, where he's like, you got to punch like this style, and here's the very specific mechanics, and no. Nobody wants that. But you know what? I'm telling you, like, if you want to be a good fencer, you have to have good foundations. You have to have the basics. If you do not have them, you will not be a good fencer. You can't even be a great fencer. Certainly not if your mechanics and basics and foundations are rickety or poor. Basically, it's like, the way I look at it is with anything in life. If you're going to build a building, if you build the foundation properly and it's a strong foundation, yeah, then you can build floor 1, floor 2, floor 3, floor 4, floor blah, 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 blah. But if you build your foundation pretty poorly, you build up to 3rd floor, you got to tear the whole building down again. And you want to do any more floors, they say you got to tear it all down again and start all over, son. And you're like, why? Because you guys screwed up, you hurried, you were lazy, and you were just in a hurry to get the building erected and up. Well, guess what? You got to start all over. So they're like, why don't you spend 6 months on the foundation and get it right, and then all the other stuff will go like butter. Instead of saying, hurry up, build the foundation, go, 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 go. Then you hit what's called the glass ceiling. And hey, that even happened to me as a fencer. I knew there was going to be things that I wasn't going to be great at. You know, I was not going to be an Olympic athlete.
I think in life, everybody wants their own montage. They just want to, you know, it's to go over in one scene that's fast forward with a bunch of clips through a long period of time, and then they're just good at the end with the blink of an eye.
Yeah, and that's the irony. I mean, I'm not trying to say how can you blame them, but in a way, it's sort of like, well, they treat their lives like it is a movie, and that's the thing is, it's like, look.
Yeah, I do. It's gone great for me so far. I mean, I got a lot of great experiences. I climbed the mountain. I went to jail. Never mind. This is not about me. Yeah.
But it is what it is, and it's just like, it takes time. All these kinds of things, like even when people would see the live lightsaber performances, the reason I feel that I don't see some of the same style performances that I made with other people, and here we are many years later. Like, I mean, some of my first productions were in 2000. Like I said, 5 and 6, and I'm still waiting to see ones that rival it in some fashion. Some of them are pretty good. I've seen some great live performances out there, but they still don't have things like dialogue, story, staging, and in some cases even acrobatics and stuff. And I wonder why, but at the same time, it's because it takes so much.
If you don't do like a quadruple backflip, triple fucking barrel roll, and then land and then parry the other dude's shot at the perfect time, I'm fucking done with you. You know?
Yeah, I mean, some of that you'd be surprised. There's this, like I said, there's this wonderful martial art sport called tricking, and a lot of these guys do those awesome flips and kicks and stuff like that. So it's possible. It is possible to do all that stuff, even live, without cables and all the other stuff. But it's very difficult to put all the pieces together, and so that's why it's difficult. It's just like why, someone says, Star Wars has held on for so long as being, not just because they're the highest grossing movies of all time, all this kind of stuff like that, but it's just like, so many of these parts were put together in these interesting ways that no one else was really able to replicate it for decades.
But now we're just such diehard fans. I heard it told best by this old school goth dude, and I mean like he was like real goth. This dude was like 35 when I was like 25. Mm-hmm. He's from a different era, like some typo fucking negative shit. And he's just like really happy about the world about the fact that he fucking hates life and is waiting to die. He wasn't emo. It was just a trip to listen to this guy talk. Like, yeah, dude, fucking psyched about like dying and shit. Like, what?
That is odd. I mean, it's a perspective. I don't know if I would agree with it, but it is.
Well, like hearing this dude talk about Star Wars. He put the nail on the head. He's like, it's practically garbage these days, man. But like, you throw in the Force and a Star Wars and a lightsaber, and I'm sold. I'm buying the ticket. I'm going to see it. I'm getting the game, and he's right, man. Like, I've always followed Star Wars, and I don't really know or care where they're going, but I'm gonna keep looking into it. I'm gonna keep going to the movies. I'm gonna keep buying the games. Like, I'll be that guy at the end of the movie. Like, this was fucking garbage. Can't wait till the next one.
See, I definitely have a different perspective on, I would say, even all the films. Like, for example, I know that almost everybody agrees that they all seem to love 4, 5, and 6, and I do. I loved all the originals. I also kind of have a very unique look at episodes 1, 2, and 3, and I won't go into all the reasons why.
Yeah, like I don't hate them, man.
I'll say
like,
one thing about them.
It's trendy to hate them, but I don't hate them.
If anybody wants to learn at least a little bit more about episodes 1, 2, and 3, and they're a little bit more analytical and technical, and they want to know, like, okay, well, how come we feel that they're not great, or we feel that they're weird? Look up a site called Star Wars Ring Theory. And it's not some weird psychotic site. It's a website dedicated that this guy did sort of an analysis on what he thinks George Lucas was up to doing those movies. And I won't go into it in detail.
I'm digging that.
We'll be here for a long time.
Like the dude explains why people hate the prequels and shit.
Not exactly. What he does is explain what he thinks was going on with all of those that most people just completely missed. And again, it's arguable, and some people might say they still don't care, and that's fine. My point is to just educate. Like I'd say, if people want to find out more about episodes 1, 2, and 3 and why they might have been crafted the way they were, I would look up StarWarsRingTheory.com.
Yeah.
It doesn't excuse everything from those films, but I will say that I believe that George Lucas was trying to do something that was not your atypical movie formula.
Yeah.
Which seems clear, because then people would say, well, that seems clear because he had so many villains and so many storylines and all these different things are happening.
That puts some things
into
into perspective, how people are like, oh, like blah, 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 they're tired of this old storyline with the hero and the dark suppressing power. But then you try to give them something new and they're like, oh my god, this is new, this is garbage. Well, what
you know
the
what's
fuck?
Funny about that?
Just a moment ago.
Exactly. That is exactly what you just said. That is exactly how I feel about there was Star Wars 7 and 8.
It's because movies have existed for too long, and now they're like everything's garbage. Period. Well, what about no? That's garbage too. But it's new age, and we're doing it. No, that's garbage too. Well, there's just no fucking pleasing.
I liked 7. I'll be honest. I'm the one that was. I'm the
8.
one in this group.
All right, dude. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm the one.
I like 7 too.
I'm the one in this group that's kind of
on
a
the
hater on 8.
Yeah, dude. No. And Adam put some shit. I think you might have put this this thought that I feel like is my own, and I tell people this like I came up with it. But in hindsight, you might have put this in my head. The director was just shutting down fan theories. And he was so obsessed with being like, fuck your fan theory, and fuck your fan theory, you're cool, fuck your fan theory, and he did that the whole movie to where like everyone had fan theories on the past of Snook and or Snooky, Snook, wherever he came from, and he just died immediately like, fuck where he came from. Oh, what about Ray's parents, and are they significant? Her parents were scavengers. Fuck your theory. It's just like every theory anyone had, and like the director was like, it's fucking bullshit. We're moving on.
Yeah, it's funny you guys mentioned, because again, it's like when people, if they're able to get calmed down and silent a little bit in their minds about things, they can look at things with a better eagle's eye perspective. And here's my perspective on 7 and 8. 7 was definitely a safe return for Star Wars.
Yeah,
I think they did it right. They brought aboard, of course, J.J. Abrams, who obviously brought a wonderful hand to it, and I liked 7. 7 was a good film. It's arguable, though, now some people say, oh, it's a copy of the... I don't care about trying to compare it and do weird things. I'm simply saying that, let's be honest, it was a safe return. There wasn't anything so out there and like, whoa, blow your mind with 7, other than saying, wow, the graphics, wow, the costumes, wow, the footage, and ooh, these beautiful things. And there was also some cool stuff though, where she had the dream, and that was very cool. So I think that was the craziest that they went, and even that was a nice like when she touches the lightsaber in 7, and she has that weird dream kind of thing, like the visions. The closest that I felt like that was going way out there in left field was they kind of did that in Empire Strikes Back, when he's like, in you must go, and he's like, what's inside? Only what you take with you. So it was similar to that. That's what I felt, and that was the closest they got to trying to push the envelope anywhere. But in a way, it was still a callback to Empire with that vision. Now, talking about 8. I fully believe that Rian Johnson knew precisely what he was doing. Now, that said, if people said I didn't like it, that's fine. They can have their reaction. But I believe everything about 8 was revolved around 2 major crucial things that if you have an eagle's eye perspective and you said you could only say 2 things about Star Wars 8, what would they be? The movie was about failure, and the movie was about getting past those failures. And that's it. I mean, yeah, someone can say, well, if we zoom in closer, Matthew, I'm like, yeah, then there's a lot of plot points and people can argue them left, right, up, and down. But think about it. Absolutely everything in the movie is showing the failures that either the heroes were making or the villains were making. And then about how people get past those failures, sometimes in a healthy way and sometimes in a worse way. Think about it. Makes a lot of sense. Luke, considered himself a failure, and he was just retreating and staying off in this, whatever, I'm not going to go help the things, and fuck the Jedi, I don't care about it, and whatever, they got to die. And everybody's like, get over yourself for 2 minutes and come help us, right? That's what the whole plot point is. And it took him the entire film for him to get out of his head and admit, okay, I was a failure. Yoda even said it, right?
Right.
It was a big lesson that Yoda says, where he's just like, failure is the best teacher, and pass on what you learned to Rey, and don't have her repeat the mistakes that we did. And it was really interesting. I found it to be pretty moving.
Yeah, because in the beginning,
the failure of what is it? Finn and Rose head off on that mission. Now, I know a lot of people were like, what the hell was going on Canto Bright?
Look, I liked the. That's the one part I liked.
All right, well, I'm in between. let me tell you, because I understand where Adam's come from, but because he really liked it, and I'm in between because I didn't really like it.
Which one?
What was it, 8? The whole
8
episode.
Oh, the Canto Bright part?
Yeah. The thing is I understand spin-off adventures within the Star Wars movies. That's part of Star Wars thing.
Right.
He just froze.
Yeah, I was
Oh my
going.
God.
No, I was like, I can't remember why I hated it. I remember hating it, but now I'm recalling it in my mind, and I'm just agreeable with all of it. No, that was okay, I guess.
My problem with it is less about the
it
story.
didn't matter. I'm sorry, I'm back on track. It didn't matter. Whenever they go off on some tangible, fucking random adventure, it still somehow matters. But now it's like all about this girl's emotions, about how she cares about the creatures and shit, and there's nothing at stake other than this dude's relationship with this girl that doesn't really matter yet.
Well, if you recall, though, and that's my point about this whole thing about failure, they went off to go find this code breaker, and then it turned into it didn't work out. They screwed up. They failed their mission. Now, it's true that they found something else to do while they were there. They couldn't let it go, the thing with the creatures and the slaves. And by the way, that's the irony to me, is how this failure was dealt with.
I think it would have been perfect.
Let me finish, because I think you guys might like this. Because I had to think about this. It took me a while to get to this thought process too, with when I was thinking about that Canto Bright scene, because when I first saw it, I was like, what the hell? I don't know why they did that, and I know there's got to be a reason, because there's no script writer, whatever, out there who would write this kind of thing without a purpose. Honestly, you just wouldn't do it. It's just impossible to think that someone would do it without some kind of intelligence.
Yeah, it's like you're saying what I'm saying.
And what I realized was, I think that it was exactly that. It had to be a failure, but what they succeeded at, and this was completely by accident, they weren't even thinking about it, is they inspired that next generation. We often forget about all those little youth, the kids, that kid at the end with the broom, is that none of them had ever seen the rebellion. They only talked about it, and they would play and pretend, oh, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm this, that, and the other, and they had probably heard about it, but they were slaves. They never once saw anybody rebel, and they lived in this rich community where they were slaves, the rich were the rich, and that's how it was.
But
then
they're seeing this.
Enter Finn and Rose like a bunch of freaking jackasses. They're running cattywampus all over everything. They're destroying the casino, and everybody's like, oh my God, what the hell is this? And afterwards, right, you see that kid where, remember, she gives him the little ring or whatever, and then he's like, yo, this is real. I thought all this stuff was a bunch of things to make us feel good, but then he literally, this young kid knows, and he's going to be able to pass that on to all his other future buddies and kids. He's going to say, yo, the rebellion is real. We thought that we were just the downtrodden, and that's our lot in life, and we're going to stay that way for the rest of our lives. But me, again, personally, I think that's why it was written in, is that although, Rose and Finn and the side quests and the code breaker, they all that got fucked up. None of that worked. That was a big giant mess for the actual rebellion. But the irony is, it ends up indirectly inspiring the next generation of rebellion, aka all those little kids.
I like that idea because it coincides with this theory that I have. That I've heard or read, I should more say, producers and directors and people behind Star Wars today talking about how they want to expand more on the origins and just like including the Gray Jedi, you know, like the Jedi, like the in between, you know, and I feel like that's where they're trying to lead with Kylo Ren and Rey. You know, like they're neither Sith nor Jedi. They're tired of the whole shit. All right, but my theory now, like I could turn out to be completely wrong, as theories do. My theory is that they're gonna slightly, just like you're talking about, like they're setting up to the new generation of the rebellion, and the new generation's gonna be Gray Jedi. All right, now like. They're doing they're gonna do. I bet you they do 2 different trilogies. 7, 8, and 9 are setting up the Gray Jedi, and 10, 11, and 12 are about the Gray Jedi. Now I don't know. That's what I think.
No, I don't think it's a bad theory at all, and especially when you try to also then to tie it all the way back, and then this will be a weird moment maybe, or we'll just see what you guys think is. So in episode 1, when Obi-Wan is young and Qui-Gon is there, you know, Liam Neeson and all this kind of stuff, if you recall, when they first are going into the Trade Federation, both of them are kind of like, this is kind of boring, like, you know, we're supposed to be these great, you know, peacekeepers of the galaxy. We're about to go have a little meeting, and the only reason the story can even start there is because shenanigans go on. They're trying to gas them, and something's going on, and, you know, but otherwise, think about it. When the galaxy is doing well, then the Jedi have not necessarily no purpose, but they're like kind of neutral and boring, and like in other words, it's like if you're a police officer in the place where the least crime ever occurs, let's be honest, you're bored as hell.
Yeah, you're twiddling your thumbs like, I wish there were gangbangers around here.
Maybe to a point, or at the very least you are becoming complacent, and that is the cyclical kind of thing about the way any society works. And also, by the way, that's the thing, George Lucas was always about all that stuff like that. He was very much a like most people don't know that George Lucas would have been an anthropologist if he didn't get involved in filmmaking. And you can literally look up tons and hundreds, well, maybe not hundreds, but, you know, several dozen videos that when he's being interviewed, he'll tell you those stories. So in case people think, oh, this guy is, who's this Matthew Novastar Carauddo guy, he's pulling stuff out of his butt. I'm like, no, look it up. He was basically studying anthropology. It's half the reason, if not all the reason, why Leia had those very interesting buns as her hairdo. It makes a callback to I forgot if it was a Spanish princess or a girl of Spanish descent. It's hard to explain, but like he borrowed all these kinds of things from actual history. Is what he was doing. You'd have to look it up and you'll find out what I mean one day. But anyway, it would call it all the way back to showing that he's always been talking about how there's these political powers and they rise and fall. And hell, even Natalie Portman as Padme has one of the best lines. She's like, so this is how democracy dies, with thunderous applause. And it echoes precisely what happens in the world all the time. We put these dictators into positions of power. And we do so because we're complacent. We get to a point where society is
and it's all
going so well. Everything is going so well that we become complacent. We're like, oh yeah, everything's great, and there's no crime, and everybody's happy, and da 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 da. And then, you know,
and then you get a Jar Jar Binks in politics, right, and he fucks shit up.
I'm not trying to be all political, but like, look who's in office right now.
A bunch of Jar Jar Binkses. That's exactly what.
It's complacency. It's because we let ourselves go into those places, and then what has to happen? Everybody's got to step up and ante up like men and women, and kick in and kick butt and do something to make something matter. Then what happens? Change. Things go on. There's fights and struggles and power, and then eventually, as hundreds of years go by, it kind of everything settles and it becomes complacent again, and it's a cyclical thing. And George Lucas was, as far as I know, definitely trying to teach that through the 4, 5, and 6, and definitely through episodes 1, 2, and 3. So if Rian Johnson was trying to bring it back to that, I don't know, I'm saying mission accomplished. Like, he was literally showing how, you know, this regime thing happens again. Like, you know, the First Order is just a shittier copy of the Empire. You know, it is true. It's just think about it, right? It's like Kylo Ren and who was Dominic, oh my god, I forgot, Dom Hall, damn it, I don't know how to say that guy's name. The actor who played the imperial-ish guy in
I don't know
episodes 7
any
and 8.
actor's name.
Yeah, I know you're talking
Domhnall
about. He's
Gleeson.
just
Domhnall
the
Gleeson.
imperial-ish guy. I thought that was his name that he was Christianly born with.
What is it? I'm trying to honor the actors' names because it's Domhnall Gleeson, and then Adam Driver is Kylo Ren. So anyway, the point is, they're all they look like crappier copies of the previous regime and everything.
Yeah, well, that was supposed to be to take you back to that era. All right, like we're not doing pre 4, 5, and 6 anymore. This is after 4, 5, and 6. We're not doing pre takeover. The Empire has taken over and lost, and we're in the future, and now they're stormtroopers and Imperial officers and the whole shebang.
Yeah. That's the thing, is this cycle repeats. And remember, this is supposed to take place 30 years later. I mean, maybe they had to do that because, Mark Hamill and Carrie, rest in peace, Carrie, we love you, and Harrison Ford were all, was 30 years older, But the point is, it was basically showing another callback to their, yep, the bad guys have come back and we got complacent again, and now we got to go and rise up to the occasion again.
Yeah. Well, man, hate to end this right here, but I mean, it was fun talking to you.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah,
just is there any last plugs you'd like to say, or anything we missed?
No, I mean, we could always do another one another time. I mean, I'm trying to think if people, I don't know who's going to be, listening to the show, but they can just go and support by looking at the YouTube channel is the easiest way to get in contact with me. I have Facebook pages as well if people want to look it up, but, they can just look up youtube.com/sabercombat. Facebook is probably the same thing, where you go Facebook and then, I don't know what words you use, but then to get pages, there's Saber Combat, there's also Saber Combat Novastar or whatever, and that way they can go and look and see what work I've done in the past. I probably won't be uploading more content to all those places anymore, based on that I'm kind of moving forward, and my time has come and gone. There's a time and place for all those things, but yeah, people can feel free to go ahead and say hi. I'm friendly.
Man, it was awesome to have you on. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, dude.
We're gonna have to. We'll probably end up splitting this. Not this episode, but the. We label things by the beer we're drinking, and so we'll probably
because we are opinions and beer.
So we'll probably be splitting
beer and opinions here.
We'll probably be doing a part 1, part 2, because we do have a second interview to get to.
I wonder sometimes if our viewer or if the people we're interviewing even know that we're steadily getting more drunk as we interview you.
No, they can tell.
They might know.
Yeah. Well, no, it's because Adam keeps us cool the whole time. The other guy's getting more and more drunk.
Yeah, because I'm pretty complacent.
Yeah, he is. And I'm not having fun enough. Let me chug this beer and then ask this guy this question.
That's the fun of the channel, right? I suppose that's part of the shtick. And then, hey, you can always do the what do you call it? The shout outs to the beers, right? And get you're
exactly.
sponsor.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe one of them will sponsor us one day.
Well, I think that would be the point, too. After a while, you'd say, hey, I've been drinking enough of this beer. I mean, you guys could be like the angry video game nerd and do a roll and rock.
That's what we said to them, but apparently we're nobody.
No.
Join the club. It's okay. No, but that's cool. I had a great time, and Adam, Keenan, it's great to chat with you guys, and I appreciate the opportunity. For me, I'm just
that's
blessed.
A phenomenon.
I feel that
no one ever
being able to be a
name.
part of the Star Wars community for the last 10 or 12 years was really an honor and blessing for me. It didn't happen maybe to other people in this particular regard, and I was lucky to do all that stuff. And it's interesting now to see where all the rabbit hole is going with other folks in the community. But I feel like my time, I've done what I've done, and not to quote Obi-Wan, but I'm getting too old for this sort of thing. So.
See what you did there.
All right, man. Thank you so much for being on. That was Matthew Novastar. Thanks again, man.
You bet. May the Force be with you, and never forget, luminous beings are we, not this crude matter.
Oh, shit. That was so good. Thank you, man. Goodbye, man.
Take care. Thank you.
Okay, that was Matthew Novastar. Great guy. Make sure to follow him. You can probably find him on Facebook. We should have a link somewhere in the description. And that was awesome. Star Wars. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the Star Wars talk. I think Rian Johnson implemented a lot of I didn't get to say it, but nihilism. I think Rian Johnson implemented a lot of nihilism in The Last Jedi that I certainly don't agree with. That I think that some characters should have been held up to higher regard, and I think that Rian Johnson just showed a blatant disregard in caring about old characters. And I don't want to get into this right now. This is obviously we've spoken quite some time about Star Wars, so maybe another episode I'll get deeper into my thoughts. But in my thoughts, they're just my opinion. And that's fine. Because all we have here are opinions and obviously beer. Opinions and beer. Opinions and beer. Can't go wrong with opinions and beer. Opinions and beer. Opinions and beer. 'Cause all we got here are opinions and beer.